Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Thank y'all for coming. Y'all are spread out far and wide. I'll get a crick in my neck turning back and forth to look at y'all. So thanks for coming. Thank you for being here. We didn't know when we scheduled this whether it was going to be live and in person or whether it was going to be taped and broadcast. So several folks sent me questions. So with your permission, I'll start there. Is that okay? And then we'll go from there. When I know who submitted the question, I'll tell you. And when I don't, obviously, I won't. So at first I was asked for a list of updates, and I don't know who this came from, but it's a lot of items, so we'll run through them. Update on number one, the columbarium. Some of you may not even be familiar with the fact that Stillage has decided to put a columbarium for niches for ashes at the chapel, and that process kind of stalled out. The board said, do it, but go ahead and do pre-sales and get enough pre-sales to cover the cost, and then we'll do it. But we got a lot of people who did not. Some people did do pre-sales and are in. Others said, well, I'm not going to do that, but I am interested and I think you should do it. So we've had a lot of comments about you should do that, but not that much interest in prepaying. So as a result of being able to be a good steward during this construction process, we have the money to do that, and we're going to go ahead and put in the first phase of the columbarium. And that's being ordered now, but I will tell you the company has said 90 to 180 days is the delivery window for when you can expect something to actually get here after you order it. So somewhere in the next 90 to 180 days, it'll get here. We have a local contractor already lined up to do the install, and the install won't take long. It does come as a unit, so it mounts to the wall and then is bricked around. It'll look good when it's finished, but we'll do that as soon as we can actually get it here. Okay, so that's the update on columbarium. Update on the bistro. We have signed the contract for the bistro renovation and expansion, and that work is underway, although you can't tell it. The first step you have to do in any project now is you have to do an asbestos study. The asbestos study is what has been done. The results are back, and there is no asbestos, but now you also can't disturb anything in the building, even after you get your asbestos clearance, without a demolition permit from the county. So that's where we are now, is all that paperwork about asbestos is sitting with Lexington County for them to issue the demo permit. As soon as that demo permit is issued, which we think will happen this week, they're ready to start. So that's where we're at. Once it gets started, it'll move on without stopping, assuming that they keep being able to get the supplies they need to actually do the work. Furnishings for that are already ordered. Because that's a question you should ask is, well, when will it ever get any furniture in it if you build it? That order's already been placed. So hopefully it will be here in time for us to use it to install in the building when it's done. Another question I didn't get asked is about the December finish date. I don't have a contract that has a December finish date. It's impossible to get a contractor to give you a finish date now in today's market. They don't know when they can get materials, and they don't know what's going to happen to the supply line, so they will not give you and will not honor a set date for completion. It's an as soon as we can completion date. We trust this company. It's GMK. They've done other work for us. They've done this size of construction project we generally use them for. They've done those for us in the past and have done a good job. So we trust them. We think that they'll do fine, but they admit and understand that there's things about the supply chain that they can't control, and we know that. Child care centers, and the next one on the list for update. I don't really have much of an update there. We're going to do that. We're trying to figure out the how and the when. COVID has changed things there. There are child care centers already in existence who don't have enough children in them and who don't have enough workers in them. And it's a really weird time to be planning to just jump ahead full force with a child care center. So I will admit that we're kind of standing here going, when and how and exactly what's the right thing to do and the right timeline to do it in. Same thing's going on with the development committee as far as restarting a capital campaign that would work to fund the child care center. Is it the right time to ask people for money? Is it the wrong time to ask people for money? And they're trying to decide that too. So there's lots of questions about child care. If any of y'all have a $4 million check you want to write and give me today, we can stop asking questions and we just go build it. But I'm guessing that's probably not where any of you are. But we're committed to it. The board has authorized it, but they authorize it in a way to say, Danny, do it when it makes sense and when it's going to work. So I'm trying to be careful to be sure that we are going to do it that way. So I'll keep you posted as time goes on. You will know if the development committee decides that they should run a campaign, because we'll talk to you about it. Okay. Next one on the list is this says speed bumps. We're actually looking at speed tables. That's similar to a speed bump. I actually found some pretty local if you want to go drive across some. They're at the Columbia Metropolitan Airport. If you go to there like you're going to go drop off somebody to leave on a flight, you'll drive across 2 of them as you approach that area. So if you want to see what they look like and drive across them and see how they feel, that's the closest place I know of that you can actually get a look and feel for those. But they've been designed by our civil engineer, and they are being priced by a contractor. They have designed 10 of them to go around the campus. There are 3 that go over in the Cottage area. Even the engineer's suggestion was put those 3 in first and get a decision before you put in 10 of them as to whether that's the right solution for your residents and for your staff, and if that's what you want. They're not cheap. They're not horribly expensive, but they're not cheap. But his suggestion was put in those 3 and then get some opinion before you put in 7 more. And then, if everybody goes thumbs up, then you got an answer. If they don't, then we need to look at something else. So that is our intent. I think if you were at the resident meeting, you already heard that from Troy. Update on the new chaplain. We have made an offer to and had an acceptance from a new chaplain. He'll be coming from the great state of Virginia, where he has spent about 10 years working in a large retirement community that's sponsored by the Episcopal Church and the Presbyterian Church called Westminster Canterbury. And he's anxious to get here. Our diocese won't call him without doing a really thorough background check. So everything I'm telling you is pending that background check being done and a thumbs up coming from our diocese that they will call him into our diocese. The new chaplain knows that and has no concerns about that at all. He's been through that process before. And he has been in this diocese. I think it was the Diocese of Charleston is where he was for a short time doing an interim work some years ago. But we do have somebody located and found, should be able to have them here by September the 30th, which is when Rich really wants to sing his swan song. And so I think the timing's going to work out right for all of that, pending that background check information actually getting done. The diocese makes no promises. That's a third party that does it, so they won't tell me when it'll be finished, just that it'll be done as soon as possible. Ask about vacancies in apartments and cottages, and I did not bring with me the list. It has the exact details on that, but there are about 28 apartments or cottages, no cottages, available across the entire campus. There are 8 of those in the new Hopewell building, and the rest of those are in one of the existing current inventory pre-Hopewell, but no cottages are available at this time. They signed 4 Hopewell contracts in the last 10 days. So things are moving there at a pretty good clip. Basically, there are about 2 different floor plans that are left, so there's not a lot of choice, which gives some people a little bit of pause, but I think the Stewart says too as well. But if you don't choose, there won't be any choice. So just come on and become a part of us. So hopefully that's going to work. And the other units are selling as well. So I think we're on a road to recovery. If we can just keep this COVID thing under control, then I think we're going to see our census come back. Not on this, but I will mention this to you as well. Still Hope's applied for and received the Paycheck Protection Program loans. I know y'all all heard about that on the news. We did receive one of those loans. There was a lot of question for a long time as to whether that would actually be forgiven and we'd be able to keep the loan, or whether we would have to return the money. We have filed the application for forgiveness, is what it's called, through the Small Business Administration of the federal government. And we have gotten back a thumbs up that our loan is forgiven with the interest. They did say, however, be sure and keep all your paperwork for 6 years. So we get to hold our breath for 6 years about whether or not we really get to keep the money. But the short answer is that we get to keep that money. That money does not cure Still Hope's 2020 budget, but it comes pretty close. So that was really good news, and really we needed that shot in the arm for our annual budget, because we have definitely seen a fall in revenue. We've seen a fall in expenses as well, and we've done everything we could to control expenses. But we've seen expenses want to push up with all the extra help and overtime and extra pay that people are looking for and kind of demanding, and all the testing and personal protective equipment and all that stuff has been extremely expensive, and that's not over. So but the good news is that PPP does a lot to get our budget back in order. Okay. That sounds important. The latest guidance on visitation in Greenway is next to the last item that is on this list. Indoor visits are allowed again in all of our neighborhoods. There is no neighborhood now on quarantine. So you can visit anyone in any neighborhood you want to visit. You are required to wear a mask, and you will be screened when you go. The health screening, you will have to submit to that. If you have any signs or symptoms of anything other than being well and healthy, I would just tell you there's just no point in going over there and standing in that line, because you won't be able to visit. So if you have no symptoms, you have no signs, you've had no exposures, everything's good, and you can answer the health questions fine, and you have no fever, and you have a mask, then you can visit. And I'd encourage you to do that if you got loved ones or friends over there that you would like to visit. I don't have any information on the state newspaper delivery issue. I understand it's broken, and that the state newspaper understands it's broken, but they have a contract with somebody who isn't doing the job the way it's supposed to be done. And the last I was told this morning was that there are a number of residents who are filling the gap and are picking those papers up at the door and are actually helping to deliver those to your doors. So you can thank those folks. I don't know who they are, but y'all probably do. And maybe some of you in the room, if you want to tell us who you are, we'll give you a round of applause. Say it again. Fran Wheeler is one. And Margaret Sims is another. Okay, good. Sim. Okay, yeah. Okay, so that's that list of updates. Other questions I got. This one from Hank Shaw. Would I talk about the survey about the variety of outdoor activities and outdoor space use? So I brought some information with me. You may wish that I hadn't. If I try to get in too much detail, because we'll be here all afternoon. But so we tested bocce ball, badminton, croquet, pickleball, and a dog park. Those were the things we asked you questions about. The one that tested the most positive was croquet. It tested positive at 49 people who said they were interested. Now, that's still a far cry from half of us as residents, but it was what tested the best. The smallest vote, positive vote, was for the dog park with 14. Pickleball came in right there with the dog park at 15. How many people know what pickleball is? Okay. How many people don't know what pickleball is? Raise them high. Yeah. It's all the craze across the country. I don't know exactly how to describe it either, except that it's sort of like tennis, but smaller and easier to play. And it seems to be really popular, especially with older folks across the country. But it's a little slower, I think, to catch on here. And maybe it's the heat and humidity that keeps us from having as much interest in that outdoor game. I don't know. And for bocce ball, there were 29 people who had interest in that and 23 in badminton. Comments were all over the place. I told y'all earlier when I met with you that the most negative comments had to do with the dog park. I have the comments, but I'm not going to read those necessarily unless y'all want me to. There were a few other ideas were raised from people who took the survey, and there may have been a question. All I got was a result, so I didn't see the survey. I don't know if there was a question that said, what other things would you want to do? Was there a question like that on it? I figured there must be, since there were a lot of looked like write-ins. A garden space for residents got 1 write-in. A safe, attractive place to walk and a place to walk and places to walk and walking paths were a lot of what was there. And I think there we just need to be sure everybody understands where we do have walking trails and paths. And Denise is aware of this, so she's working on trying to be sure that people know. There was the comment about helping us understand the distances from different paths, and I know she's already done that. So that was a comment that came from this survey as well. Then there was one, and I'm, take this one. It's not really outdoors, but listed as an outdoor activity. It was personal training in the fitness center. So I know they're working on that, but I don't know exactly where that is. But that's not exactly outdoors, but that is something they are working on. One actually said pickleball and bocce ball take the cake. So that was their suggestion. But they were also looking for anyone interested in playing backgammon. So if you have an interest in playing backgammon, let me know and I'll let them know. Cornhole was another suggestion. Y'all familiar with that game? A lot of heads nodding for cornhole. If you don't know what it is, you've probably seen it. It's a board set up at a little bit of an angle with a hole in the middle, and you throw these little sacks with corn in them and try to put it through the hole. That was suggested by a couple of different folks. A woodworking shop was suggested. Those really would be weird outside. But anyway, I get it. I was just trying to be funny, so y'all, I apologize for that. But we have almost always at Still Hopes had 1 or 2 historically guys interested in woodworking. We've never found that to have more interest in 1 or 2 guys at a time, which makes it really hard to do. It's a lot of space, it's a lot of expense. Every time we've had somebody offer to give us their equipment, it's come with no safety guards. It's old. It doesn't meet any of the OSHA standards to be in any kind of public area or being used by people that would have to be covered by insurance. So that's been a tough one for us. But we have looked at it again and again, and we will continue. I said all that today because I do believe when we do the middle market community at the school district property, I think we're going to find more people interested in woodwork in that group. And if we can get interest there and put a woodworking shop in the basement of that building, it'd be something that the 1 or 2 guys that are always here that want to use it could use. So that's kind of the hope I've got. I won't call it a plan just yet, but the hope I've got is when we get to the point where we're testing the amenities that middle market people want, that we may find woodworking test out higher. Croquet and walking paths is again on here. A permanent meditative labyrinth is one that's listed. That one was listed once. a 9-hole golf group. When I first started reading this, I thought, oh my gosh, a 9-hole golf course, where in the world are we going to put that? But it actually says a 9-hole golf group that would play somewhere from time to time. So that one's being shared with Michelle to see if there is interest in guys or gals getting together to do a golf group that goes somewhere to play. And then there was one that said table tennis, which I call ping pong. So I was surprised that one was there, but that was another one that was there. And it suggested for an appropriate area outside, which is a little, I guess there's certain seasons that would work. I need a room when I play ping pong because I have to chase the ball too much. And outdoors, it just keeps on going. And I'm seeing more walking. Oh, and then there's one also for horseshoes. So we had one for gardening outdoors and one for horseshoes outdoors. We have the horseshoe thing. We've got some raised garden beds, but we're working with a group that would like to see us add more of those. So we're talking about that as well. Either adding more, dividing up the ones that are there or something to make it more available to more people. Okay. A review of fire alarm procedures for the apartments was another question. I'm not prepared to do that today and do that here, but we are working on that, so we will do that. There will be a gathering of the folks from the Hopewell building to have an orientation about that together. We'll do that here in this room very soon. And then we're also working with the fire department on fire drills. If you were at the resident meeting, there was some discussion about that. And there was some discussion about we need to know before you have them. Then we heard that the fire marshal said we need to be sure these are surprise drills because people were already downstairs before we ever even got here. I've been here a long time and I've witnessed that too. When we announced that we're going to do a fire drill, about half the residents are gone at that specific time. It's a good time to go grocery shopping or just go visit your neighbors or something and get out of Dodge. Or go ahead and come downstairs and be ready to just go, okay, I'm done. That's not what the fire marshal appreciates or likes. But I think we just need to talk that through as a group and understand. I think we still need to do an announced fire drill, but we need to give you instructions to not pre-drill, to wait in your apartment until you hear the sound and then do what you're supposed to do, because the fire department's here and wants to see that. But they can't really see it and critique it and give us pointers if we don't do it right. So we need to do it right. Many of you do not like surprise drills. And in some cases, we have enough false alarms to go. We've had unannounced drills. Like the McDowell building has had several unannounced drills of late. I have some news there too. Our fire service company, their assessment of what needs to happen in the McDowell building is that we need to replace almost all of the smoke detectors in the building. So they're getting together a price and seeing how long will it take to get those here. They've made the decision that those really are of an age and stage that they just need to be replaced. So not the horns and strobes, they're fine, but the things with the noses that sniff the particles in the air are going to be replaced. So we're working on that. Supply chain is going to be the issue as to how long that takes. All right. This one, discuss the response from employees following new federal law mandating that all retirement community employees and nurses be vaccinated or leave. Well, I'll start by saying first, there is no new federal mandate for that. There's discussion about that, but there has been no mandate. We've not been given any directions to mandate a vaccine for anyone at this point. We are taking the same stance that our national association is and that the American Healthcare Association, that's the association of pure nursing homes across the country. And there's also one for assisted living that's called the National Centers for Assisted Living, NCAL. All of us are taking the same stance that we're not opposed to a mandate. We're opposed to a mandate that's as narrowly focused as saying nursing home workers, because you've left so many places for those workers to go. where they don't have to be vaccinated, that you will take a hard to staff area and make it an impossible to staff area. So that's our message. If you agree with that message, feel free to relay it to anybody and everybody you want to. If you don't agree with that message, don't tell anybody. Just kidding. Whatever you think is the right thing, you should feel free to call your senators and congressmen. But it is a national issue. The way it's been talked about from the president's office is he specifically said, that he'll end your federal funding for Medicare and Medicaid if you don't do this. That's the way he sees the mandate going out. I want to be sure y'all know the assisted living industry is huge across this country. It employs at least as many people as the nursing home industry. It gets no federal funding at all anywhere. So if that's what he does, he will have left every assisted living facility in the country out from under that umbrella. And that's what we're suggesting would be a bad idea. At the same time, and this is one our association's really hammering at, is we have federal surveyors coming in to survey our Medicare and Medicaid certified beds, and they come in to survey those without vaccines. And they tell us that's none of our business and they'll do what they please. So one of the things we're saying too is what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you're going to tell us that all of our staff need to be vaccinated, then the people you send in to do the inspections, they're here for 3 or 4 days and they're here all day long. They need to be vaccinated. So don't have a response to that yet, but that is our stance from our nonprofit association, is that that's not good medicine. Anybody got any other questions about that topic? I'm through talking about it unless you do.
What
Yes,
is
sir.
the percentage of vaccination among residents and staff at Silver?
I can do that as 2 separate groups. That's what you meant, right?
That's what I meant.
Yeah. For residents, the question was, can I tell you the percentage of vaccinated folks among our residents and the percentage among our staff? Our residents are nearly 100%, as nearly as you can get. There are a few whose doctors specified they couldn't take the vaccine for a legitimate health reason. They did not. And there were 1 or 2 hospice recipients who just said, I'm not taking anything to prolong my life. If that's what I get and die from it, then that's good, but I'm not going to take any more things like that. And we respected that. Other than that, you're vaccinated. Staff, we're ahead of what South Carolina is as a state, but we're not much ahead. We're still just over 50% vaccinated with our staff. And one of the issues, if there is a mandate, let's say there is a mandate and it's broad enough to cover all of our employees, and we take the stand and say, okay, everybody has to be vaccinated if you're going to work here. What we know is the other backside of that is if 10 people leave because of that, we have to fill those 10 positions on top of the positions we already have. Right now, today, our pool for filling that is anybody who meets our criteria that they know what they're doing and they don't have a criminal background and they don't have a drug problem, then we can hire them. But when we go to fully vaccinated, almost 60% of South Carolinians will not be eligible to work here. We couldn't hire them. So that's going to be the trickiest part, even if this mandate does get broadened out and makes sense and we do it, is going to be how do you hire all the people you need from what has just become a very much smaller pool of applicants. So that's a concern. Bishop Gadsden already lives with that. That's the Episcopal community in Charleston, because they did mandate the vaccine really early on. But they're in a position now where they're trying to hire fully vaccinated staff in an area that's less than 50% vaccinated. So more than half the people who apply are immediately ineligible to be hired. And if they haven't had the vaccine, as y'all know, it takes a while to get fully vaccinated. So you can't just say, well, you go take care of that and then come on back. Going and taking care of that means they'll be gone for 45 to 60 days getting that done. They'll just go somewhere else. Because y'all already know this, everybody's hiring. Whether it's flipping burgers or frying chicken, whatever it is, everybody's hiring. I don't know what happened to all the people. I don't understand where they all went. She's asking about Still Hope's planning for the booster shot. Still Hope's right now, I would describe us as a sponge in that regard. We don't know what's coming. We're listening to everything we can hear. We're reading everything we get our hands on, but we have no clear word from anybody. We don't know whether they're going to send serum here and expect us to do the injections, whether they're going to queue up CVS and Walgreens again and have them come here and do the injections, whether they're simply going to tell you to go somewhere and get the injection. We don't know. We're going to...
Who's the they? The Department of Health?
I don't even know who the they is yet. Probably, I think the CDC is kind of who headed that up last time. But they could delegate that over to states. So it could be DHEC, it could be the Department of Health. I just don't know. We're listening to everybody and watching everything right now. We'll tell you everything we know as we know it. Our pledge will be whatever the process is, we're going to help you get it done. And we're going to help our staff get it done. So if the process is they're sending serum to us and we have to figure it out, we'll figure it out. If the process is transportation to CVS and Walgreens, we'll figure that out. If we can coerce somebody, even if they don't do a program, to bring the drugstores back here, we'll still try to coerce somebody from a drugstore to come here and do it anyway. And sometimes we're able to pull something like that off just because you could come here and get so much done, and we won't clog up your parking lots and we won't back out down the aisles of your store. So maybe, but we just don't know yet. His story is that his oncologist told him to go get it. I guess he gave you a prescription for it or something, told you to go to CVS. A letter, and CVS gave the shot to him. If you're immunocompromised now for some reason, and there's a pretty strict definition of that, our DON says almost nobody here is going to meet that definition, and that's all I can tell you about it. But if you meet that definition, you can get a booster shot now. And I do understand that they're not really strict on that 8-month thing, that if you go in and you have the right compromised immuno system, that they'll give you the booster if you ask for it. I can't guarantee you that. I haven't tried that. But we do know of other people who've told us similar stories that they have already gotten the booster. We have also heard people who went to CVS to get the booster and were told, well, you don't meet the criteria, and they weren't given the booster. So I don't know. I think just like I'm sitting here telling you, we don't know yet. I think there's a lot that they don't know, and some are willing to take a leap of faith, and others are waiting for the rules. We're in a position where we're going to have to wait for some rules because we're not a place that gets the serum at this point. So we can't just line you up and give you the shots because we don't have the serum to do it with. A lot of us believe from what we're reading that that's what's going to happen, that they're going to declare facilities like ours places with nurses that can give injections, and they're going to send it here. But we don't have any proof of that. Just some reading between the lines is what I'd have to call it. Next question I've got had to do with mosquito control in the courtyard, and we have arranged for that with our pest control provider. They're going to be adding something that I don't understand into those big raised plant beds that will control mosquitoes in that area. This one asked about spraying or fogging. They specifically told Troy they can't fog or spray here, and I don't know all the reasons why, but I do know those regulations have gotten really strict on what they can do and what they can't do, but they will be treating. That they think it's an effective treatment for mosquitoes that they will apply at those raised beds where people won't get into it and where pets won't get into it. Question about Polly's Pond being drained and cleaned. We're using, and you're seeing some cloudiness in the pond, and you're seeing cloudiness in the lower pond. We're using some chemical treatment now to clear the pond. That's our best course of action. Demucking the pond would be a huge expense and a huge undertaking if we need to do that, especially when the pond is completely surrounded with buildings. So we're going at it a different way, but we are working on the pond. Okay. The last question that is on this list is really a discussion. It's This is a resident who has used, for the second time, tried to use the stairwells in the Hopewell building to walk up, this time from the garage to the 4th floor. So I say, go guy. That's awesome. But when he got there, the door was locked and he couldn't get in, and his card wouldn't let him in. So he had to go all the way back down to the bottom and start over. So I thought we had that resolved. And I thought we had agreed that we were going to unlock those doors. But when I circled back to Troy and to Trez, the two guys that work on those doors, I discovered that they had crossed communications and they did not unlock them. So my question was, well, whatever it is that got you crossed, will you go look at it again and decide, can they be unlocked? I see no reason why they can't. And the reason why is because those doors are secured at the garage level. So you don't have to worry about somebody coming into the building from and getting into the stairwell from outside and then coming into the buildings. That's why those locks were put on the door, but then they're key coded at the basement level where you really can't even get in them anyway. So they did go back and relook at all that. They agreed there's no reason for those doors to be locked on each level, the interior doors into and out of the stairwells. So that's a programming issue. You don't just go, well, let me just take my key over there and unlock it. They have to be reprogrammed to stay unlocked. So they have told me that by the end of this week, they will have that done. Okay, I guess it's about 15 doors that they need to reprogram. But they'll get that done, and then we should not have that problem again. So you should have access into and out of those stairwell stairs. The good news is those locks are there. If for some reason we figure out we really should have those locked, we can relock them and try to figure it out the other way. But if your key card is expired, you have to, in the Hopewell building, those of you who don't live there, they re-up those keys every day to keep them working. And that's in case they lose them, so that the key is dead and can't be used to get access in their apartment from somebody else who finds it. But that same thing applies to those doors. They won't work if you don't re-up your key either. The ones at the bottom will let you in, because if you've been gone for a week and come back, you can't re-up your key until you can get in the building. So it will let you in with the key, but that's as far as it's going to let you go. Then you've got to re-up your key before you can open any other doors. The question was, how are we working social distancing in the dining room? Because there really isn't any. There really isn't any in here either. We made the decision a long time ago together that as a group who is almost 100% vaccinated, that it's okay in this setting, in this group. And if you bring somebody into that dining room, that you'll only bring fully vaccinated folks in to that dining room. So that's how we got to where we are. Okay. Question is, what's the room that is now called the club room going to be once we move the pub? There's no final decision been made by anybody about that. We know we're going to turn the bar around to the multi-purpose room. In other words, we're going to close that hallway off and make it a hall where it will service the multi-purpose room. There really hasn't been any long-term discussion about the club room. You're prompting me to tell you a long story. Y'all okay with a long story? I'll make it as short as I can. Years ago, Still Hope's board planned 2 new apartment buildings that we affectionately called 5 and 6 for years. And in building 5, we added a club room and a pub and a multi-purpose room, because we knew we couldn't get Main Street built until after we had those revenue producing units built, because we couldn't afford to do Main Street until we did that. The discussion and decision then was that those rooms, once we got Main Street built, would go back to being 2 revenue producing apartments. So that was the idea, was that that's temporary space to give us amenity space we need until we build Main Street, and then we won't need that anymore. That'll become 2 apartments and we'll rock on down the road. Then this thing called the Great Recession of 2008 happened and derailed our plan for several years. By the time we got Main Street done, there was a feeling from the board that that would be really poorly received because people had gotten so married to those spaces. So it wasn't done. As we move the pub to a better place, and we've said we need the multi-purpose room, it serves a really good purpose. The club room may, in fact, we may decide together that the smartest thing we can do is convert that back to a revenue producing unit instead of having the space there, because it would impact your fees positively to convert it. But that hasn't even been a discussion at this point by the board, let alone a decision. It's just one step at a time. Let's get the pub redone and where it's supposed to be, get the club room set up right, and then let's see what happens. But that's something you can at least contemplate and think about. Again, you don't need to call the board and say that's the dumbest idea I ever had, because they haven't had that idea. It's just, I do know that was the original plan. If you look at what does that do at Still Hopes, well, that's another $40,000 of annual income that would come in through monthly service fees if that were a unit, instead of a room that cost us money to heat and cool and clean that doesn't produce. So if we're not going to use it, if we don't find a really good viable use for it, it might make sense. But that's all in the realm of it might. We'll talk about it. Is that a good enough answer? More than you wanted to know? Anything else? Okay, y'all have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks for coming.